You want to see your kid again, right? Then you better do exactly what I say. That's what the fake HOA cop told my guest. What he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know was that the woman standing before him, shaking, wasn't some helpless mom. She was a detective, one who'd been putting together a case against guys exactly like him. And before the night was through, his badge, his gun, and his entire world would all be gone. Before we get into it, drop a comment and tell me which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story reaches. It all began like any regular afternoon in Maple Crest Estates. That picture-perfect suburban neighborhood where even the grass looked anxious under HOA's supervision. My guest that day was Jessica Vance, a family friend from downtown who had swung by after work to drop off some documents for my wife. She'd parked her blue sedan along the curb outside the community park. Nothing wrong with it, nothing out of the ordinary, but apparently it was enough to set him off. The self-proclaimed HOA cop named Officer Hayes. He wasn't a real cop, not by a long shot. The HOA had brought him on for neighborhood patrols following a couple of break-ins. What they didn't know was that they'd handed a bully a uniform and permission to play God. Jessica told me later how it went down. He walked up to her car, hand resting on a holstered weapon, the type that looked fake until it wasn't. He demanded license and registration before she could even get her window down. "Is there a problem?" she asked politely. "Problem is you're in a restricted zone," he shot back. "And you people think the rules don't apply to you." Jessica blinked. "You people." He smirked. "Yeah. Outsiders, visitors, doesn't matter how you say it." It was obvious what he meant. He accused her of acting suspicious. Said she was loitering near private property, then commanded her out of the car. Jessica did what he asked. Calm, cool, professional. But Hayes wasn't interested in compliance. He wanted power. He went through her car without permission, pretending to check for drugs, mumbling slurs under his breath. Then, as she stood there in shock, he planted a small baggie of white powder in her back seat, right beneath the armrest. "Found it," he said with that smirk. "Looks like possession with intent." Jessica went rigid. "That's not mine." "Sure it isn't," he said, getting closer. "Now, here's what's going to happen. You do exactly what I tell you, or I make one phone call, and your little boy grows up without his mother." Her heart raced. His voice dropped to a sickening whisper. "Start by taking off that top." Jessica stared at him, eyes wide, pulse pounding. "What did you just say?" He grinned. The kind of grin that makes your stomach turn. "I've never been with a woman like you. So unless you want to spend tonight in a cell, you'll do what I say." Jessica's body went stiff. She was scared. But underneath the fear was something else. Strategy. Because what Hayes didn't know was that the entire thing was being recorded from the hidden camera she'd activated the second he'd started harassing her. She looked him dead in the eye and said quietly, "I think you just made the worst mistake of your life." And she was absolutely right, because within 24 hours that fake HOA cop's entire world would come crashing down in front of every badge in the station. Hayes pulled Jessica out of the car with way too much force. Her shoulder slammed into the doorframe, the pain sharp enough to knock the wind out of her, but she didn't resist. Not yet. She understood how to get through moments like this. Let the aggressor think he's in charge. "Face the car," he snapped, shoving her toward the hood. "Hands behind your back." Jessica did as he said, heart racing, eyes watching the reflection in the windshield. She could see his smirk, the cockiness of someone who'd pulled this before and figured he'd get away with it again. But what he didn't see, hidden under her sleeve, was the tiny speaker clipped to the inside seam of her jacket, blinking red and sending every word to a secure server. "Stay still," he said, yanking one wrist roughly into place, his body pressing way too close to hers. "You're making a mistake," Jessica said quietly. "Shut up," he barked. "You think you can talk back to law enforcement?" She turned her head slightly, her voice calm but sharp. "You're not law enforcement, Hayes. You're a rent-a-cop with a god complex." For the first time, he paused. "How do you know my name?" "I make it my job to know who abuses power," she said. The words landed harder than he expected. He pushed back, angry now, and grabbed for his radio, but before he could hit the button, another voice came through the air. A dispatcher from the actual police channel. Jessica's hidden transmitter had patched in live audio. "Unit 47, what's your location?" the voice said. Hayes froze. "What?" Jessica smiled just slightly, the kind that told him the tables had just turned. "They're listening, Hayes. Every word, every lie." His eyes shot toward the street. 2 police cruisers were rounding the corner, no sirens, but lights flashing. Panic kicked in. He backed away from her, muttering under his breath, but it was already too late. The first cruiser pulled up hard behind his fake patrol car. 2 officers got out, hands on their weapons. "Step away from the vehicle." Hayes stammered. "This woman, she's under arrest." "For what?" one of them demanded. He reached toward the trunk, scrambling for the planted bag, but Jessica got there first. She turned around, cuffs still half attached, and held up the small baggie between 2 fingers. "You mean this evidence?" she said. "Because that's what he just planted in my car." The senior officer looked at her, then at Hayes. "Sir, put your hands where we can see them." Hayes tried to explain his way out of it, but his voice was shaking. The officers searched him, discovered 2 more identical baggies in his jacket pocket. Jessica straightened her sleeves, finally taking charge of her own cuffs. "You're finished, Hayes," she said softly. "And you don't even realize how badly." As the officers read him his rights, Jessica watched the truth sink in across his face. He wasn't arresting anyone. He was the one getting arrested. If you're loving this HOA story so far, hit that like button and subscribe because the story is only going to get crazier. They hauled him in kicking and screaming, still trying to explain his way out of it. Hayes kept yelling about false evidence, about being set up, but the only thing getting set up was his mug shot. The irony wasn't lost on anybody. The fake HOA cop who thought he could destroy a woman's life now sat handcuffed in his own station, red-faced and shaking. Captain Reynolds stood by the front desk, arms folded, face blank. The officers sat Hayes down in a chair. "Caught him doing an illegal stop, Captain," one said. "Victim says he planted drugs and made threats." "Victim?" Hayes scoffed. "That woman's no victim. She's lying. Some random lady I caught breaking the law." "Interesting," Reynolds said quietly. "Because that random lady asked for this meeting." Hayes blinked. "What meeting?" Reynolds didn't respond. He just nodded toward the hallway. The door to the captain's office swung open, and in walked Jessica, calm, collected, not in jeans and a blouse anymore, but in a sharp dark gray pantsuit. Her badge hung from a silver chain that caught the overhead lights like justice itself. The room went dead silent. Hayes stared, all color leaving his face. "What is this?" Reynolds's tone went cold. "Officer Hayes, meet Detective Jessica Vance. Internal Affairs, 6th Precinct." Hayes's mouth fell open. "She's a detective," Reynolds continued, "and she's been looking into misconduct complaints across several counties. We've had your name come up 3 times already. So, I asked for some help." Jessica took a step closer, her voice steady. "We got reports of you abusing your authority, faking charges, and going after women who were alone. I decided to check for myself if the stories were true." "You set me up," Hayes spat, fighting against the cuffs. Jessica's expression didn't change. "You set yourself up. I gave you every opportunity to do your job right. You made every decision that landed you here." The captain turned to the other officers. "Check his patrol vehicle. Any planted evidence gets logged under his name. They walked out and within minutes came back with a bag full of identical drug packets, all matching the one Hayes had tried to pin on her. It was done. Reynolds sighed. Officer Hayes, you're under arrest for misconduct, tampering with evidence, and abuse under color of authority. The officers moved forward, but Reynolds held up a hand. Detective Vance, would you like to do the honors? Jessica walked up to him slowly. He couldn't even meet her eyes. With one smooth motion, she took the cuffs from her belt and replaced the ones already on his wrists, the click ringing through the room like a judge's gavel. Consider yourself relieved of duty, she said coldly. Hayes dropped his head, broken, the weight of his arrogance finally crushing him. As they walked him out through the main hall, every officer he passed looked. Whispers started, then stopped. The kind of silence that ends everything. Outside, Jessica stopped at the door. She looked up at the sun coming through the clouds, the same light she'd seen when he pulled her over. Only now it felt like justice. Captain Reynolds walked over. You handled that perfectly, detective. She nodded once. Nobody should get away with using a badge to terrorize the people they're supposed to protect. He smiled faintly. Remind me never to get on your bad side. She gave a small, tired smile back. Just don't pull me over. They both laughed quietly as Hayes was loaded into a cruiser. His own ride, his own cuffs, his own destruction. Within a week, the charges piled up quick. Evidence tampering, false imprisonment, abuse under color of authority, and sexual harassment with intent to coerce. The DA didn't mess around. The court convicted Hayes on every single count. He was sentenced to 32 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole for the first 16. He also lost his badge, his pension, and was added to the National Registry for Law Enforcement Misconduct, permanently banned from working any security or government job ever again. What do you think, folks? Was that karma or calculated justice? Let me know in the comments, what would you have done if someone tried to abuse their badge like that? The end.